Good morning, good afternoon, good night, everybody. Thank you to join this webinar. My name is Michele Magri. I'm the moderator of this specific speech that the title is, Can we eradicate corruption through blockchain technology? We have three panelists today. Let me introduce our colleague, our people. First of all, Josina Rodriguez. Josina is a blockchain advisor and consultant, and the first holder of blockchain PhD in Portugal, according to Renates. Before starting as investigator in 2016, she worked for over 20 years in the corporate world as a marketing and finance director, and as a consultant and advisor for several enterprises. She is currently an academic advisor board member at International Association of Trusted Blockchain Application. Our second panelist is Mr. Nuno Cortesau. His biography is this one, with several years of strategy and digital consulting experience. Nuno has been focusing on innovative fields, behind a blockchain subject matter expert, and is currently leading the blockchain COE of Shell Focus, a Novebase, and Vodafone collaboration. Previous to this role, he founded the blockchain area of Accenture Portugal, set the cornerstone of the blockchain area, Everest NTT Portugal, and worked in machine learning anti-fraud for major Spanish bank. He holds a Master of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering with specialization in energy by Tecnicio Lisbona. Then our next panelist is Mr. Khalid Mashoud. Mr. Khalid is expert in the field of accreditation and certification. He is qualified lead auditor in quality management system standard ISO 9001, and he has extensive knowledge of some other management system standards, including anti-bribery management system standard ISO 37001, compliance, risk management, EAMS, OHS, FSMS, Halat and Organic Agriculture Management System standards. The legal background supports Mr. Khalid Mashoud to understand and resolve complex and multinational issues like bribery and corruption. Well, today we discuss about very important topics related to the corruption. If there are the possibility to eradicate corruption through the blockchain technology. And for this reason, I would ask to Josina some questions. The first one, my curiosity is related to how can blockchain effectively be an anti-corruption tool, Josina? What do you think about this?
Thank you, Michele. Thank you. And first of all, I want to take this opportunity to thank PSCB for the invite. It's a real pleasure to be here today. Well, blockchain can be used as an instrument for anti-corruption, as its own characteristics allow to fight against bribery and corruption. Blockchain is an immutable ledger which records all transactions and tracking assets in a business network. An asset can be physical, tangible, or intangible. So virtually anything of value can be tracked or traded in a blockchain network, reducing risk and cutting costs, all involved. So blockchain is a versatile and programmable platform that is collaborative, transparent, and unchangeable, and allows, through a verification system, the proof of the authenticity of each transaction. We can explain just a little bit more blockchain for someone that just wants to hear about a buzzword. The block is in blockchain is a class of records containing a timestamp, transaction data, information of the asset, and most importantly, the blocks are unbreakably chained together, as each contain a cryptography hash function from the previous block. If one block is tampered with the hash registered in the next block, it will no longer valid. So the chain then breaks and they must be recalculated. Blockchain records are therefore considered to be immutable. 2 days ago, in the opening session here in PECB, it was discussed how important auditability is during some processes. One of the examples presented was the schemes created during the pandemic moment that we are living now. So the application of blockchains can be efficient mechanism to regain trust. This is the most important word, trust, on a specific process such as land registration, e-governance, logistics tracking. So, and I also mentioned the NFTs. This is the high of the moment. So what is NFTs? Non-fungible tokens. NFT is a kind of digital certificate established via blockchain, which defines originality and exclusivity of digital goods. Is the first time that we can say that art is mine. So recently introduced this introduction can guarantee the property. So to answer the question promptly, blockchain can be an anti-corruption tool because it can create trust acting as a shared database distributed across vast peer-to-peer networks that have no single point of failure, no single source of truth. This implies that no individual entitled can own a blockchain network and no one can modify the data storage. So the consensus meets all peers. Is this?
Okay, great. It's a fantastic explanation about the question. I would ask to Nuno Cortesau, from his point of view, if could, let me say, provide us some concept alignment about blockchain. I'm not an expert of blockchain, to be honest, and as many people in this webinar probably ask to yourself what could be some concept about alignment of these topics.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you, Michelle, for the words. Thank you for the PSB for the invitation to do this webinar, and I want to thank all the panelists that are here. And that's a critical question. So picking up from Josina was saying blockchain. She cherry-picked a few topics, but it's critical to understand that when we start to look into this, how we will stop bribery, how we will advance and ensure that we can create a trustful environment in the future. It's very relevant to understand that blockchain has two segments, and we have at one side the cryptocurrency, that is a segment that is more hyped, where the mass market is there, where people already know because they know Bitcoin, because they know Ethereum, because they know a few buzzwords, and because it has a very big market around it. And then we have on the other segment all the developments that are being constructed in the underlying corporations. So corporations are tackling blockchain, so they were able to decouple the cryptocurrencies part, and also start to use the technology to create new tools, to create new features that they can fit in their product. And so when we start looking as a scope to all of these on its broad range, we perceive that we need to start to have some alignments between what is being done in the cryptocurrency world that needs regulation from the financial industries at the top levels, the bank levels, the SEC, and all the other financial institutions that work on top of this, the central bank digital currencies and the government itself. And then we have the sub-segment that is one of the biggest pillars that has to be tackled, that is the corporate blockchain. So corporate blockchain accounts for creating trustful environments where we create verifiable identification, where we can start creating multi-country identification for users, where we can create passports that allow us to exist at a self-sovereign way, and that then can push applications on top, and where we can start creating assets inside of the corporate ecosystem, and where we as users can in the end, as Josina was saying, have a user experience where we can interact with this new technology. We can accrue the value of these trustful transactions, the transactions that are immutable, that doesn't lead to reconciliation, and that have lower values because are not pegged to cryptocurrencies, and so work on top of the typical software industry benchmark, instead of having solutions that are working on top of solutions that have a volatile market ballpark. Okay, and I don't know. I start to talk a lot, so
Yeah,
so that
no,
we can
it's
have time.
okay. It's very helpful for everybody to understand this concept. Thank you.
Yeah.
I would ask to Khalid another question based on his experience. Khalid, how accreditation and certification play a role in combating corruptions in system, based on your experience, of course?
Yes, this is the work on anti-corruption standard 37001 was started in 2016. It is not very old, but yet it has a role in combating or reducing corruption in the system. I'm not expert of cryptocurrency or blockchain, but one thing I understand that technological change make a lot of difference in the financial system nowadays. As a layman, I understand that it is a new concept, and it will take a lot of time to gain a trust in the financial market, or it will be a good change for the financial market to adopt the blockchain system for financial transactions. So far, corruption is concerned, to use this as a tool, I think it will be very supportive in augmenting the corruption, anti-corruption movements or anti-corruption steps in the overall management system. ISO has been working on this very long, and recently they have also modified the compliance management system 37301. This is also a very good standard which will support the 37001 for implementation of that standard. One thing I have worked a lot is composite and integrated management system. This will also support a lot to curb or to reduce corruption in any management system or social sector system. So far, blockchain and cryptocurrency are financial tools in the corporate sector and not other governmental or social sector. But standard and accreditation or certification applies to all other sectors also. And this way, I think integrating standard and technology can play a very vital role in reducing or curbing the corruption element in any system or society. Thank you.
Okay, great. if I correctly understood from your experience, is very important, the accreditation and certification combating corruption system. I correctly understood? Ah, okay. Great. For everybody who'd like to put some question to our panelists, please use the chat in the right side of your screen, and then we go in your question and try to answer in a proper way. Josina, I would like to ask you a few questions. From your experience, what are some use cases of blockchain as a mechanism to eradicate corruption?
Oh, thank you, Michael. I just starting to answer, but after I will ask my colleagues, panelists, to also to add use cases, because for me it's one of the important questions for this webinar, because everybody asking. When I started to study, everybody asking, do you think that it's results or not?
Sorry if I interrupt you. Please give your experience, because everybody needs to know your experience, your study, etc. You know. Thank you.
Yes, exactly. So several applications, as you know, to have immediate and visible benefits of blockchain and provenance and logistic and tracking. We can start with e-governance, but according to Anti-Corruption Research Center, more than 80 big brands have joined the experiment, including the giants like Nestle, Unilever, Carrefour, Dollar Food. So producers that delivering to these channels, they are encouraged to register their shipments on the blockchain. Walmart, for example, is one of the first companies to demand registration for fresh leaf products. And we are talking almost 7 years ago. So another use cases that I like very much is from Goblin Game Lab, who has developed a technique in visible tag gemstones and diamonds with nano-sized particle at the mine. The project is credited with combating blood, diamonds, and restricting legibility stones that are used to finance, terrorism. So also De Beers and BCG, Boston Consulting Group, developed a project of traceability of precious stones, guaranteeing authenticity from provenance of millions and millions of diamonds all over the world. With a platform that you can see, Tracer, well done. And last week I published in my LinkedIn page one of the luxury platform that was created, a unique ID allow traceability during the entire life cycle of products and keeping record of each transactions with certificate, puts the customers first. The cases comes to prove that property can be authenticated to any point in the product's life cycle. So the second part is e-governance. So we can talk about since 2012, Estonia is a big, huge case to protect national data, e-services and smart devices, both in public and private sector. In Dubai, they created the label to be the first smart city fully powered in blockchain. It's fantastic, their use case. It's well done. It's using 3 strategic pillars: government efficiency, industry creation, and international leadership. With a lot of discussions, Michael, it's funny because everybody is interacting and try to find the best way to implement. The Chinese government is also supporting the construction of a blockchain city. Now they are doing this, only now. The critical shipping lane from Malaysia, Malacca Strait. And finally, to have more 2 very good examples from e-governments is from India and from Australia, who have well-structured roadmaps to implement in the high level of e-governance blockchain. So it's by use case. I have 2000. So I will open for other questions and we can come back. Thank you, Michael.
I could jump here, Michelle, to add three that I believe that are really critical to add to the use cases that Josina was saying. The one is connected with digital twins, so the ability to recreate something that is physical, and then be able to reflect and create the same object at the digital form. And this can lead to the digital certification of cars, of houses, and all the, as she was saying, also at the provenance level, so at small to everything that can be digitalized and recreated in the digital world. And when we go there, we first tackle the certification phase, but then we also open new business models. So we create revenue on top of that, because when you start having like digital twins that are trustable, you can create syndicated loans, you can create DeFi on top of this. So it's very interesting. The other is applying this, as she was saying, to the eGov. So applying this for this transparency layer, mainly using blockchain, public blockchains to regulate and create standards for governance, for government industry, and create really transparent marketplaces for projects and stuff like that. Something that should be added.
But Nuno, I'm very curious about this, but I have one question for you. Which sectors from the side benefit the most with the usage of blockchain in underlying, and why are not the public government leveraging blockchain from your experience?
That's a very interesting question. So it kind of merged on the topics I was saying. The public, so we have different industries that can benefit from using blockchain, and we see that the private sector, as I was saying, so we have the cryptocurrencies first, then we have the corporates that start to look into all of these new mechanics, and they are the ones who are jumping in, because typically they have more appetite for R&D, and they try these novel solutions. And we see that public government this is a very big novelty. It's not regulated yet. They don't know typically how they are going to tackle these, and so they are kind of on the waters to see how they are going to surf. And at least me, I get very sad on this, because blockchain typically for corporation, it has some problems around privacy that can be tackled with consortia, and there are solutions to do it, but there is still investigations and R&D doing on that part. But for the public government, typically there is a desire from the citizens and the desire from the ecosystems itself to have a full transparency. So it kind of becomes very obvious that public governments have to jump into it in the future, because they are the ones who are more connected with certification of individuals, so creation of valid identification for individuals to interact with each other. They have the topic of cryptocurrencies, so they have to jump into, because they have to regulate this somewhere in the future. And they also have to jump for this, because we can start to create smart contracts, very autonomous, very efficient, where for example, projects that have to be done in the countries can be on a transparent way listed, the requirements. Companies or private companies can go there and bid to do those kind of projects. So there are plenty of use cases for the public government to jump in. Regarding then all the other industries also benefit from this, because if we start having certification at the user level, at the individual level, where we can, for example, have certification of our documentation of the courses and our education and all of that, we start to have a synergy and a reduction on validations and costs of doing investigations that will benefit all the industries just if they start. And so there is plenty of space. We are on a booming industry. It's the Web3 revolution we just started, and I believe that in the 5-10 years, the majority, at least in the most developed countries, will have production use cases running on top of blockchain.
I believe too.
Great. But I like to share with Khalid another question about ISO standard. Which, Khalid, for you, which ISO standard address the issue of corruption, and what is your concept of composite integrated management system, CIMS, to mitigate corruption?
Yeah. As I have already mentioned that ISO 37001 2016 version, and now it is guidelines are given in the 2018. ISO 37001 2018 guidelines cover the corruption issue in management system. Along with this standard, the compliance standard ISO 37301 is a compliance management system which also augments or supports this standard to for compliance of the other requirements of this standard or any other management system standard. Along with this, the composite and integrated management system, I think, is comprised of the ISO 9000 standard, ISO 37000 standard, and other risk management standard 31000 standard. These three standards jointly can address a issue of corruption in any organization or any setup. Along with this, I think legal background or legal support is also very important. Without legal or regulatory structure, only standard cannot do anything. All the three standards and legal structure or regulatory structure can integrate it with other management systems like ISO 9000 or whichever is applicable to the entity which wants to adopt the ISO 37001 standard. So these management systems augmented or supported with the legal background, legal systems, or the concept of integrated composite and integrated management system. I have worked a lot on this subject to improve the governance, to improve the management system of any organization if they are interested or if they want to issue the problem of the corruption or bribery in their management system or their routine working environment. That is what I propose, that each organization or each social organization should adopt these at least the three of the ISO 9000 ISO standards and other integrated management systems. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Khalid. It's very helpful to everybody to understand it, your experience. Josina, I would ask other question. Probably you can help everybody to understand. Will blockchain truly disrupt government corruption from your point of view?
Wow, it's very, very hard. It's a very hard question, but I will try. Everybody will.
And in your country, I don't know, your country probably is Portugal, isn't it?
No, I was born in Brazil.
Okay, in Brazil. Oh, fantastic. What could be this question applied to your country?
But you know, Italy, we have problem with Italy too. So, so before everything, hope beyond the hype. And everybody here is researchers and entrepreneurs. So everything that I will talk, it is to open discussion. So the implementation of blockchain technologies in governments affects directly fundamental aspects of society, such as trust in institutions, identity, which level of transparency we have, and data and privacy protection. As here, as Europeans, we can talk that RGPD, it's a reality. As I briefly mentioned before, the state of Estonia is developing in terms of e-governance a whole interconnected infrastructures of example that allow a greater control and transparency. As you can see, it's a use case. Estonia is one of the first countries to implement government certified digital identities. Each one has a ID card that they have access in all services from the government. So according to the Corruption Perception Index, Estonia is among the top less corruption countries, just like in Dubai, which is the biggest example of a smart cities that based its principles on disruptive instruments, that is the blockchain. And nevertheless, as I told you before, all the characteristics about blockchain mitigating corruption at the governmental level requires, first of all, legal restructuring that allows implementation of this type of this instrument. And it is acceptance, not only, but also change values by creating social consensus. Blockchain is based in a simple principle that reveals no compliance at any time. This characteristic poses another kind of problem. To what extent will the implementation of this mechanism will be interested and supported?
It's easy to implement this mechanism from your side. And put another question related to that.
Yes, we will. A few weeks ago, for example, to review what is happening in the world, Don Tapscott, it was someone that's a guru for me in the beginning of my thesis, shared a report with Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Where he presents blockchain as the basis of country's digital revolution. It showcased some topics should be treated as a priority for the American government in order to guarantee the change that the current world demands in relation to adoption of new technology. And among them, rebuilding trust in the system's election, including holding elected officials accountable in their mistakes, as well creating new tools and guaranteeing a standard of digital excellence for American public service. Overall, we can consider that from an operational point of view, as an economist talking, it is possible to implement a mechanism that avoids corruptions. It has been said that for the first time in a computer science, we have a storage mechanism where we can write something. We can be sure that hasn't been overwritten. However, the political will for this mechanism to be implemented requires structural change, as you know, in Brazil, in UA, in Colombia, in United States. So overall, blockchain has the potential, but it's a potential changer to be a game changer in anti-corruption. But basically depends on legal systems, as always, infrastructures, social priorities, political settings, of course, rather than technology itself. So it's not a kind of consulting how technology can be implemented, how we can do day by day, Michael, it is this. So as you can see, we don't have a real answer. You have something, a mix of priorities,
yes,
decisions.
But probably experts like you could implement or support the implementation of this blockchain strategy, I can imagine.
We are doing, in Europe, we have INATA, but we are doing MiCA. We are trying to create a regulation with, we are not talking about DeFi, decentralization finance, but we have all the legislation try to promote how we can develop. So it's another kind of panel. So
Yeah.
sorry, Michael.
No problem. It's very interesting, your point of view, of course. We are available to understand all about corruption blockchain. Please, Nuno.
No, I was going to jump to provide another angle. I'm no expert in corruption. My specialty is blockchain. But I was hearing to Josina, I was kind of rethinking your question, Michelle. And I believe that there are two tangible and use cases that can help to really reduce corruption at government using blockchain. And when I start thinking about corruption, at least I'm from Portugal, so and when I start to think about corruption, one of the things that we know that happens the most is people that go to places that they are not intended to. So there is not a correct way to place people on public on public structures. Sometimes the correct people go there, sometimes they don't, because some unforeseen or some corruption or there is like a way, or people try to bypass the rules and they try to place people that doesn't have the correct qualifications. And that's one way that blockchain can help to solve this in a tangible way. So when we start using blockchain at a top-down level, and we start working with college and working with universities, the government and the universities are able to create certifications for the degrees that people earn. And that can be very relevant because we can start to create automatic procurement for placing people on public structures that fit a specific kind of predefined rules. So if I have to, I'm going to work for a very big energy contract that is connected with public government. And if there is a specification that requires someone who has a energy master degree or some kind of engineering background, we can create some kind of tools that have the automated rules to always validate these kind of things. And the persons that provide the certifications and that provide their verifiable credentials can be trusted, and you are sure that the person's all the degrees that they are expected to do that kind of positions, and that can kind of foster and reduce the problems that can arise, because there is a knowledge on upfront that there is going to have a very strong transparency and a due diligence. It's going to be performed by anyone at any time, and so people have an incentive to always behave, and this can be very relevant to try at least to tackle this corruption part. Then we have like the corruption part connected with money, but that's a complete subset.
Yes.
That we could talk hours about it. I don't know, probably you have more questions, so just to not.
No, it's very interesting. It's very interesting. Consider, Nuno, that in Italy, the university doesn't provide a sort of certification. You know, it's a general kind of study, engineering, economy, and blah, blah, blah. Probably for the specific certification to blockchain or other topics needs to have a strong background, university background, then get a few specific course training, and then get the certification, international certification. I can imagine, because in Italy the situation is not so, let me say, good for this point of view, apart from some specific university, but in general there are not this situation. Okay, I would ask to Khalid related to this point. what are the common subject or area that CIMS, blockchain technology, and the cryptocurrency, and how they can augment each other in reduction corruption from your point of view?
I think transparency and other trust, and the third transparency, trust, and the third one I have forgot, are the common areas in the blockchain technology and the 37001 corruption standard. Because all the standard and the blockchain technologies code and code for the trust of the customers, or trust of the people concerned with the system. And thirdly, they also make a transparency in the system. You can see see who has made the payment or from where the payment has come. Similarly, in the standard, standard makes sure that the system is transparent. And likewise, I'm sorry, I have forgot the third area, which is very important, which is covered by the standard as well as the blockchain.
Khalid, sorry, but what's the situation in your country about the certification? There are developed this kind of, let me say, training or not, from your point of view? There are many people that ask training about or certification about these topics.
Yes, yes. I think in Pakistan, mostly the management systems standards like ISO 9000, EMS, OSHAS, or other halal certification are very common or popular. But unfortunately, not the anti-corruption or anti-bribery standard 37001. For this, I have been trying very much to introduce training or to convince the government of, offices or government officials to introduce at least for awareness of the public departments and other private departments to introduce this standard in their system. But unfortunately, for the corruption, anti-corruption, the system is not supporting here in Pakistan.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, last question, because I'm very curious, you know, for Nuno, about sustainability. How blockchain and better corruption combat and can lead to a better future more focused on sustainability?
That's a very interesting question. So we are seeing a trend where our society is trying to be more sustainable. In the last years, this is something that we feel in the air, that we feel when it's something that we feel when we talk with our relatives, with our friends, and blockchain can have a strong footprint on this. There is a misconception typically connected with Bitcoin energy consumption. The corporate blockchain typically don't have this kind of energy necessity, and also even the big cryptocurrencies are moving towards other kind of solutions based on consensus using proof of stake and other solutions applied by different technologies. And we see that in the future we will have public chains and consortium chains, all very efficient on the usage of energy. And what this enables is that we can build applications on top of it that can benefit most sustainable future. So we can start looking into the certification of carbon prints and carbon neutral carbon neutral certification of companies, so we can start to create marketplaces. So blockchain can be a strong enabler, and there's a very big use case for two, at least now I can see two by heart and from top of my mind, where we can certificate the usage of or the footprint of carbon of each company. And then we can also try to translate these into a marketplace in the future. So we can have a very efficient marketplace where companies are rewarded when they create renewable energy. So when they create energy that comes, renewable energy that is placed into the grid, they receive some kind of certification, and then they can try to resell that to other companies that are not so so advanced in the energy production and that are still consuming more carbon oriented fuels, and we can create this kind of new business models where we can reduce corruption because we have certification on technological certification of the ESGs and the carbon certificates, and then we can try to create marketplace on top of that with easy and upfront rules where companies can trade these and also apply this to individuals. So blockchain can be very efficient in the future to start reducing our footprint of carbon and take us to a sustainable path. And I don't know if the other panelists have something to say about this, but this is these two use cases.
Great.
Okay, Michael, 1 minute just to answer your last question. I have got remembered. Okay, the two areas.
Sorry, after we have a few questions from the attendee, and try to provide the feedback. Okay. Please, Khalid.
Okay. Oh, okay. I wanted to say that two areas are very common in the blockchain and ISO standard. That is transparency and traceability. Because both the systems or both the tools provide transparency and traceability from where the product or where who is behind the payment or transaction in blockchain and who is the process owner in the quality area or the management system standard. These are the common areas in both blockchain and standard system, management system standard.
Okay.
Okay,
thank you, Khalid. Thank you. Okay, the first question from audience. This is the question. What is the role of leadership and political will in efforts to use blockchain technology? Who would like to provide an answer from our question?
Because we are facing a lot of challenges in leadership. All over the developing countries, I think, have a common issue of leadership. Yes.
Are you agree? Everybody?
Yes. Okay. Because without leadership, without political will, you cannot succeed in any system. Whatever the transparency or whatever the you may bring, blockchain or standard system, management system, but you need the one thing. If you have a good leadership, if you have a political will of the leadership, then you can make a lot of change. With a small tool, with a normal tool, you can make a big change.
Okay, great. Are you agree, Josina, with the Khalid?
Totally agree. Yes, because when we are talking about decentralize the ledger, am I lose my power? Okay. I'm sure that everybody asking, we don't have a contradiction here. So first of all, we are I believe that we are finishing a period of a pedagogical understanding how blockchain can help my organization. How can I make money with blockchain? How can I see real benefits with blockchain in my organization? But we need a top-down mindset. And it's very important, linked with human resources, and mainly now in pandemic moment, because everybody's remote work. I'm sure that a lot of companies trying to sell blockchain as a hype, but in each case, we have a very particular ecosystem that we need to integrate and change people. So now we are in remote work. Everybody's creating new jobs, new profiles, new mindset. Look, Pakistan, Khalil is Pakistan. Okay, me and Nuno, we are together, but you are, Michael, in Italy, and we have attendants from all over the world, in Africa, all over the world, different time zones. So we have different time zones, we have different profiles, but different new opportunities. So the answer is new leadership with new mindset to understand, first of all, how blockchain can help not only them, but everybody, and spread all the benefits all over the world, or their ecosystem. We can see directly this in supply chain. It was one of my questions in my survey for my thesis. Do you understand blockchain? So I have a couple of examples, but I will not do this now. Trying to create a metaphor with my kitchen, that blockchain is so easy to understand. Yes, definitely. So 100% Khalid with you. Mindset. And thank you for the question. Who is the attendant that gave us the opportunity to talk about leadership? Do you know, Michael, the name?
No, it's a question from the audience.
Okay. So thank you. No, I'm sure that you can, we can.
No, I'm not going to add because I believe Michelle have more questions. So let's go to them.
Yes, I have a few questions. I try to provide to the expert this one. This seems to be a lot of concern about the computational requirement and the related electrical costs around cryptocurrency. Would the same potential problem exist if blockchain were used to fight corruption as discussed?
No. Can I jump in to answer this question?
Thank you so much.
So I believe that, as I was saying, this the energy that is used for at least for the public blockchains to run nowadays, the ones that leverage proof of work, that is the high intensive computational power that requires a high throughput of energy. That kind of challenges are starting to be solved. I wouldn't say, but are starting to be tackled. We have, for example, on the major blockchains, at least, for example, the Ethereum one is trying to do a movement to the proof of stake, and that will take, if they are able to achieve that, and if they are able to ensure that will happen, that it will have a massive reduction in the energy field. Regarding to the applications that we are talking, the majority of these applications will run, at least from our perception and from what we are seeing as use cases popping around the world, will happen on top of consortia that use other kind of underlying technologies that typically don't use this kind of power to foster the system, because they rely on other type of consensus. So it's not expected if we have like some kind of public entities or some private consortia that assemble to tackle some provenance, some certification problem, etc. They will use technology that doesn't have this solution, and they will not have this energy depth upfront. So it's a safe solution for fostering this kind of new innovation. I don't know if the other panelists.
Thank you, Nuno. It's very clear. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, another question from the audience. Please, I would like to know the industries where blockchain technology can be implemented. You have already discussed about these topics, but let me say, probably it's better to explain in detail which, from your experience, could be the best industry, or in which industry.
Sure, I can jump in also for this one. I believe that Josina will for sure add information after. Blockchain, it's
probably is related to the previous question, you know.
And not only so, it can apply to in reality. It's like asking where the internet can apply, and we can say, okay, internet can apply to websites, to social media, to create message to. But then you have emails, you have communications, FTPs, you have money transfers, there are like so many use cases where you can apply, and blockchain has the same parallel. So we can apply in almost all industries because it's a new way of doing of running transactions on a certified way. And we can go into value transactions, or we can go into just computational transactions. And so maybe Josina, if you want to add more information.
Yes, of course. So it's a couple of examples that's around of us now. So everything, if you can imagine that we have something that name is smart contracts. So it means that if I want to buy something, and for example, Khalid wants to sell me, I don't need a bank. So everything I can do directly with Khalid. I don't need a bank. I don't need the intermediate. So the attendant that asked us, so can you imagine everything that we can buy, everything that we can talk, you can do directly without middleman. So this is a huge difference in society, first of all. So, but we have, for example, imagine that we have here a very beautiful picture, and I transform this in NFTs tomorrow, and I will buy. I will call Chris's and I tell, I have a very important drawing that I done, and I will transform this in NFTs. So I created value, digital value, that's completely different from 20 years before, 20 years ago. Before this, we didn't have this kind of opportunity to sell this in digital world with the certified, as Nuno gave the diplomas and certifications from the universities. We can have everything in our ownership, my thesis, pictures, everything. So it's another kind of world of opportunities. So it's just to add this to, because we have so many. So Khalid, if you want.
Josina, sorry, the question is not finished because there are the part two of the question. What are the reserves requirements from your point of view?
My point of view, what is the requirement for what?
Yes, about the implement the industry blockchain technology and implementation.
Okay. First, I am an economist. My background, let's say, I am an undergraduate in economics. So I'm very pragmatic. Which kind of costs we have and which kind of benefits we have. So we need to see. Technically, it's better when we have help. So if you are here today to attending this panel, you are interested in blockchain. So let's try to find if in your reality, how can blockchain provide you more benefits. So first of all, is to see your ecosystem, which kind of suppliers, which kind of consumers, which kind of products or services are you selling, where are you selling, in the marketplace, in online, only physical. So, and after this, you need to find someone to help you. So I leave for my fellow panelists to to add that. Please, Nuno and Khalid.
I can jump in. So, in order to implement blockchain solutions, we have two paths. We can go into, or we have a solution that has a clear use case and is placed on top of a public blockchain. And typically the application and the development, it's easier. We don't have to start setting up nodes, setting up consortia from scratch. We don't need to use blockchain as a service, and we just have to create a smart contract with the rules that are going to apply, and can be used with the correct, depending on where it's being placed, but can be used by the relevant players. If we go into a use case that have that's more privacy driven, then maybe we will have to go into a consortia. So there are some placements that have to be done. So some governance has to be established between the players that are going to create the consortia. Then the network has to be deployed and maintained, and then we also have to build the smart contracts to automate the rules. And so it can go typically on industry. I work specifically, not Josine is from the finance part. I'm from engineering team, so typically.
Sure. Sorry if I interrupt you.
No, go.
We have finished. Probably we schedule another meeting, webinar in the next future about this topic. It's very interesting. Thank you so much to everybody. Thank you for support these events. I would like to
thank you, Michelle, for being the moderator. Thank you to all the panelists.
Thank you very much. It's very helpful.
Happy to do another one.
Happy to everybody. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Stay safe, guys.
Good night.